It seems that when we start getting farther along in this franchise and Call of Duty becomes this multiple developer standard, Activision started feeling that it needed to offer World War II Call of Duty games to new developers as some sort of test. First, it was Treyarch knocking World at War out of the park, and now we're getting to N-Space's attempt with World at War DS. It's another 4.5-hour game that covers the same bases as Treyarch and Rebellion's attempts, being the total conflict experience with a European and Japanese mission pack. It's strange to see such a sprawling mess appear on the DS though, but let's take a look at how this iffy developer did for its 4th iteration. This game finishes a bit different than all other Call of Duty games played so far, as most tend to stick around a comfortable dozen missions or so that may or may not have multiple objectives in them, but World at War DS tried to stuff a bit more content than those games and came out with over 20 different missions, and a bunch of them were one-shot deals that could be bested inside of 5 minutes, but there was still effort pushed into the turret section just before taking Shuri Castle, but it still shows a lot of attempted effort on the part of N-Space to try and make this game work. What didn't happen was a lot of missing development in this game's particulars. Enemy programming is horrendous when you go through this FPS because of the game's flaggy programming style. It's likely that in every mission on the ground you will run into a game's flag and suddenly have a 4-man squad appear from nowhere and take your ass apart within 3 seconds, since you are the primary target of every AI in this game. Yes, it's one of those subpar shooters where you have to game the programming and attrition your way through the whole bit, with the challenge being found in digging through the bullshit. Another patchier aspect of this game comes from N-Space's continued inability to find any sort of decent MIDI tools for its games, and has music dropping out in the game almost at complete random. And then there's the voice actors they put in this game, and they happen to do alright for the most part. And then there's this guy, who they brought in for the Russian faction, whose attempt is so inept and poorly handled that after the turret section in the Nazi Congress, this third-rate theater actor fell back into some sort of Italian accent while going on about his dialogue. More than that comes from N-Space's design flaws, with development time being spent cobbling together one character model for an entire faction in this game, and not even bothering with anything more than just the basic amounts of animation to make the game functional. So this leaves enemies above you being able to shoot forwards from their guns, then their bullets take a magic 90-degree turn and hit you perfectly from a mile away. Would it really have killed you to have these guys pointing their guns at me the entire time they're actually shooting at me? Complaints aside, and I could sit here pontificating about the many issues that this game has for well over the next 3 minutes, here's what I was banging on about with this game, and even though it has this many problems with narrative, mechanics, programming, and pure design, ultimately N-Space came into this game with the full intention to crush its chance at a World War II shooter, because the development process started with N-Space planning out a 20-plus mission epic spanning all the locations and using a bunch of set pieces. The stumbling blocks came when N-Space started the project and suddenly realized they didn't have the staff available to pull together this planned game, and I can say that simply because of the amount of shit that N-Space made an attempt in at World at War DS. Regular shoot-em-ups in Germany and Oceania, turret sections, the flamethrower made a return, an entire bombing run section, a tank section in there, and of course they do the adventure game segments again to break up this sprawling game. And one of the things I never thought N-Space would hit, they actually managed to get a decent composer on board the team this time around. The music isn't perfect. In fact, during the quick play sections, which I had to do because I had to replay a bunch of sections because my recorder died while I was getting clips for this game, but while playing through the campaign itself, it keeps the scripted musical score alongside a realistic sounding string of background noise that gives the game a cohesive soundtrack with only slight dropping more due to the DS than N-Space's incompetence, and that's why the problems in this game don't turn into a giant slog. World at War DS has a lot of variety and set pieces to keep the interest up, and as long as you know the game is flaggy, the actual firefights aren't completely terrible, and while the control system isn't great with the whole stylus camera thing making a remarkable return, this game shows that N-Space was actually trying to put the effort in to work within the handicaps that come with using a DS to play an FPS, and trying to make it work just like they did with Mobilized that made it the highlight of their Call of Duty career. Sure, the game has many problems that could have been hammered out. It has the models of a PlayStation Puppet Master and the animation of a comic book. The programming is a complete guessing game, the story non-existent, and the difficulty curve. But the important thing is that at this point in their lifetime, N-Space was trying to get a good game off the ground, and more importantly, being its first foray into the World War II shooter game, it's a good example of what their potential was before it was ruined by kneecapping itself in Defiance. So that's that. An N-Space game that didn't suck moldy cheese, and with that good note to end on, we'll be looking to the future when Black Ops is gonna be next on the chopping block. But until then, enjoy the final scoreboard, and me giving you yet another victory for gamers. I'll see you in the 60s.